Have you ever heard of a word so powerful it might have changed the course of history? Today, we're diving into a single Japanese term, Mokusatsu, and exploring how a potential mistranslation could be one of the most tragic misunderstandings in modern history. This is the story of a word that sits at the heart of the decision to use atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Let's set the scene. It's July 1945. World War II is raging, but the tide has turned against the Axis powers. Germany has surrendered, and the Allies are now focusing all their might on Japan. On July 26th, the leaders of the United States, Great Britain, and China issued the Potsdam Declaration. It was an ultimatum, a final warning to Japan: surrender unconditionally or face prompt and utter destruction. The world held its breath, waiting for Japan's response. The Japanese government, led by Prime Minister Kantaro Suzuki, was in an incredibly difficult position. Internally, they were fiercely divided. The military hardliners were adamant about fighting to the very last person, believing surrender was the ultimate dishonor. On the other hand, a more moderate faction, including some civilian leaders and even Emperor Hirohito himself, was beginning to see the futility of continuing the war and was secretly exploring ways to negotiate peace. So, when the Potsdam Declaration arrived, the Suzuki cabinet was caught. They couldn't immediately accept it without anchoring the powerful military faction, which could lead to a coup and even more bloodshed. But they also couldn't outright reject it, as that would close the door to any hope of a negotiated peace. They needed time to deliberate, to build consensus. In a press conference, Prime Minister Suzuki was asked about the government's stance on the Potsdam Declaration. He used the word Mokusatsu, and this is where our story takes a critical turn. What does Mokusatsu actually mean? It's a complex word, formed from two characters, moku, meaning silence, and satsu, meaning to kill. Put them together, and you get a term that doesn't have a perfect one-to-one equivalent in English. It can mean several things, depending on the context. One interpretation is to ignore or to treat with silent contempt. This is a very strong, dismissive meaning. It's like saying, we're not even going to dignify that with a response. Another, more neutral interpretation is to withhold comment or to remain silent for the time being. This implies a period of consideration. A no comment at this time while a decision is being made. Think of it like this. If a journalist asks a politician about a sensitive topic, and the politician says, "I'm withholding comment," it means they are thinking about it. But if they say, "I'm treating that question with contempt," it's a flat-out rejection. Mokusatsu could be interpreted as either. So, how did the Allies translate it? Japanese news agencies reported that the government was treating the ultimatum with Mokusatsu. When this was picked up by international translators, they leaned towards the more negative, dismissive interpretation. The message that reached Washington, D.C. was that Japan had ignored the declaration, or worse, rejected it with contempt. For President Harry S. Truman and his advisors, this was the final straw. They had offered Japan a way out, an alternative to total destruction, and in their eyes, Japan had scornfully thrown it back in their faces. Remember, the Allies were already bracing for a massive invasion of the Japanese mainland, an operation codenamed Operation Downfall. Military planners estimated it could result in catastrophic casualties, potentially millions of lives on both sides. The news that Japan had rejected the ultimatum seemed to confirm the military hardliners' arguments that the Japanese would never surrender and would fight to the bitter end. This perceived rejection strengthened the case for using a new, terrifying weapon that, proponents argued, could force a swift surrender and save countless lives that would be lost in a conventional invasion. That weapon was the atomic bomb. From Washington's perspective, the clock was ticking. They interpreted Mokusatsu as a clear signal of defiance. The perceived diplomatic slight, combined with the immense pressure to end the war quickly and with fewer American casualties, pushed them toward a decision that would change the world forever. The nuance, The possibility that Suzuki was simply trying to buy time to navigate a treacherous internal political landscape was lost in translation. Just 10 days after Suzuki's Mokusatsu comment, on August 6, 1945, the Enola Gay dropped the first atomic bomb on the city of Hiroshima. The city was instantly devastated. 3 days later, on August 9th, a second bomb was dropped on Nagasaki. The destruction was unimaginable. Faced with this new level of annihilation and a Soviet invasion of Manchuria, Japan finally announced its unconditional surrender on August 15th. Now, it is crucial to state that the Mokusatsu mistranslation is not the sole reason the bombs were dropped. The decision was incredibly complex, involving military strategy, geopolitical considerations with the Soviet Union, the massive projected costs of an invasion, and the sheer momentum of the war machine. The Manhattan Project had spent billions developing this weapon, and there was immense pressure to use it. However, the Mokusatsu incident is a powerful and tragic piece of the puzzle. It highlights how a failure in communication, a single word lost in translation, can have catastrophic consequences. Did Suzuki mean to say no comment for now? Many historians believe so. He was trying to buy time to hold his fragile government together long enough to find a path to peace. But the message received by the Allies was one of defiance and rejection. This story serves as a stark reminder of the immense power of words and the critical importance of clear, unambiguous communication, especially in diplomacy and conflict. It shows how a cultural and linguistic gap can lead to devastating misunderstandings. Could history have been different if a different word was used, or if the translation had captured the intended nuance? We'll never know for certain. But the story of Mokusatsu remains a chilling what-if that echoes through history, a cautionary tale about the weight of a single word. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into a fascinating and somber moment in history. If you found this story compelling, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more stories about the hidden details that have shaped our world. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next video.